Everybody to the Tuesday, February 22nd, 2022 meeting of the Beaumont City Council. I will call meeting to order at 6 o'clock this evening. And I will first of all begin with the land acknowledgement, and then I have a proclamation to read. First being, we are pleased to be here today on the traditional territory of Treaty 6 and the Métis homeland. We acknowledge all those who share a deep connection with this land. The City of Beaumont respects the histories, languages, and cultures of all of Canada's First Peoples, whether they be of First Nation, Métis, or Inuit descent, and appreciates that their presence continues to enrich Canada's vibrant communities. We're all treaty people. The peace treaties bind us all. I'll now read a proclamation for this evening before we begin our council meeting, and that is Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day, February 23rd, 2022. Whereas Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day highlights Beaumont's commitment to be a safe and inclusive community, and whereas acts of bullying, cyberbullying, harassment, intimidation, and violence have a profound effect on an individual's feelings of safety, self-worth, ability to learn, and are unacceptable in a safe, caring, and orderly society. And whereas communities, workplaces, families, schools, and individuals all have a critical role to play in the modeling, teaching, and promoting social responsible behavior. And whereas Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day, is an opportunity to actively promote respectful and kind behavior and to celebrate the actions of individuals, schools, and groups to address bullying. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mayor Bill Dowling, do hereby proclaim February 23rd, 2022 as Bullying Awareness Day, Pink Shirt Day in the City of Beaumont, Alberta, dated 17th of February, 2022, signed by myself. Thank you, Council, for wearing your pink shirts this evening, and much appreciated. Make sure everyone can see it, Sam. I just see your collar there. It is pink, right? Attaboy. All right, well done. Thanks, everybody. Give me 1 second here. Just got a helpful hint from my CEO there or something. So, all right, first order of business is number 2, adoption of the agenda. Ms. Winter, are there any changes to the agenda from administration this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. The administration does not have any additions to the agenda this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion from council to adopt the agenda as presented? Councillor Tessier, would you be prepared to make that motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move that the February 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting agenda be adopted as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, council, please vote with your voting buttons accordingly or raise your hand. Voting buttons is good too. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Next order of business is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the consent agenda this evening. Item 5A, regular council meeting of February 8th, 2022. Also 6A, regional initiatives update. Received information. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda? Councillor Munkoff-Swain, would you be prepared to make that motion?
Yeah, you would make me read the longest one. I'm happy to do that. So I move that council consent to approve the following agenda items without debate. Item 5A, regular council meeting, February 8th, 2022, that the minutes from the regular council meeting of February 8th, 2022 be approved. And item 10B, regional initiatives update, that the February 2022 report, regional initiatives update, be received for information, and that the report remains confidential pursuant to Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Barnhart, yes, see your hands up?
Yeah, just a quick question, Mayor. I might be looking at a different agenda. The agenda that I have has the 10A, around the 13A is the regional initiatives. Am I looking at the wrong agenda?
Nope, hang on. I'm just looking at what was given to me that was being typed.
I know there was a revision and I'm not sure if I've got the right one in front of me.
Ms. Winter, would you care to interject on that? Is it 10B, regional initiative update? Or 13?
13A.
It's 13A.
13A. 13A. Okay. We'll make that change. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Sorry, that's my fault. I just read off the screen without looking into it. So apologies. 13A.
That's fine. Steve, your hand went up. Is there your hands down now, Steve? Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote from council, please, with your voting buttons. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, council. On to our agenda now. Item 4, open forum. I believe we have no open forum discussion matters. Ms. Winter, can you confirm that, please?
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have any registrations for open forum this evening.
Thank you very much. 5A was adopted as consent, so we move on to 6A, which is public hearings, bylaw 10008-22, a bylaw to amend bylaw 945-19 offsite levy bylaw. We will have a public hearing this evening, followed by first, second, and third reading. So I will begin to declare that the non-statutory public hearing is open, and the public hearing is pursuant to sections 230, 606, 692 of Municipal Government Act 2000 as amended. Ms. Winter, would you care to go through the parameters of the public hearing, please?
Thank you, Mayor. The purpose of bylaw 1008-22 is to amend the bylaw 945-19 offsite levy bylaw. This bylaw will delete section 7.2 in its entirety and replace the offsite levy basins development area map in Schedule A. The notice of the non-statutory public hearing for bylaw 1008-22 was given in writing to developers. The non-statutory public hearing notice for bylaw 1008-22 was advertised in the local newspaper on February 4th and 11th, 2022. And the non-statutory public hearing for notice bylaw 1008-22 was advertised on the Beaumont's website beginning February 4th, 2022. At this time, we do not have any written submissions to read into the record at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also state that any person giving oral presentation are to clearly state their name, and that presentation ought to be brief and to the point. So next order of business on the public hearing is to have speakers in the following order. Director of Planning Administration, those in favor of the bylaw, those opposed to the bylaw, any other person wish to be heard at this time. So I will call to administration to speak to the bylaw. I believe we have with us, where's my list here? Mr. Groton, welcome to council, and please proceed with your presentation on this bylaw, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you stated, my name is Matthew Grattan, long-range planner with the city. So the purpose of bylaw 100822 is to make minor administrative or housekeeping amendments to the offsite levy bylaw. Offsite levies are a tool provided for under the Municipal Government Act that enables municipalities to capture the costs of growth for new infrastructure at the time of subdivision and development. Beaumont has had an offsite bylaw since 2008, with comprehensive updates occurring in 2014 and 2019. So specifically, this amendment replaces the figure entitled Offsite Levies Basins Development Area Map contained within Schedule A of the bylaw. This figure sets out the boundaries of the 5 development areas or basins within the city of Beaumont. Now, the changes to this figure are intended to provide clarity regarding the intent of the map, which is to set out the development areas or basins and removing non-essential content, namely land uses. Current information on land use designations and land use districting can instead be found in Beaumont's statutory plans, such as the Municipal Development Plan and Area Structure Plans, as well as the Land Use Bylaw. Secondly, the amendment deletes section 7.2, which states that schedules A and B of this bylaw may be amended from time to time by resolution of council. This is actually incorrect, as the bylaw can only be amended or can only be changed by an amending bylaw. As Ms. Winter stated, in addition to the required advertisements in the newspaper and on the city website, additional consultation was carried out with members of the development industry. 2 requests for clarification were received and no concerns were identified. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Groton. Appreciate that. Any member of the council have questions for our presenter on his material at this time? Seeing none, thank you. I'll ask anybody in favor of the bylaw to speak at this time. Oh, pardon me, sorry. I apologize, Kathy. I just saw your hand go up. It's on the corner of the screen again. So Kathy, Ms. Barnard, you have the floor, please. Sorry about that.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Grattan. I hope your cat is okay there. Your cat was helping you with that presentation. My question is around the changes to the basin and why you did, why I understand making it simpler. I do understand that. There's attachments A and B, Schedule A and B. Are they in the new bylaw, the revised bylaw as well, or just in the old bylaw?
They remain in the new bylaw as well. The only thing that's changing in Schedule A is the first map.
Okay. And are those fees that are in the levy rates, are those set by budget time? Is that where they come from?
These were set by council. They were approved in the last bylaw, which was in 2019.
So they don't get changed without coming back to council and opening up the bylaw again. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're not being changed by this amending bylaw. It would have to come back to council to explicitly be amended.
Okay. And my last question, I do know that Basin 4 has there was a different arrangement there. That's where the golf course is located in Colonial. Can you just explain to me why what that agreement was, or why that is different than some of the other districts?
I don't have that information currently. Perhaps Ms. Raymond can comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Grattan. Through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, there is a separate agreement with the developer for the Colonial Estates neighborhood dating back to, I believe our agreement is currently from 2012, and we would have to enter into a separate agreement with Colonial to be able to update that. We're not able to impose any changes through our levy system other than arterial roads.
Does that essentially mean that a development can occur, Ms. Raymond, in this area without, and they're not charged any offsite, or how does that actually work?
Yes, thank you. So through your worship to Councillor Barnhart, in the levy model itself, it has a number of different areas where it's either applicable or not applicable. And many water and wastewater are not applicable to the Colonial neighborhood. If you go to, sorry, I would have just 2 seconds here. In the bylaw itself, if you go to, sorry, I'm just going to pull that up. If you go to Schedule B, which is the defined offsite levy rates, you will see that Colonial under their basin is just totally blank. So that is the rate that Colonial would pay underneath this agreement. They have a separate agreement that would cover that. So any development is not applicable by this rate, but they are a basin that's categorized here because they still are part of the sanitary basin, and it still is definitely part of the system, but just not applicable to this bylaw. It's not applicable to them.
Interesting. I won't belabor it, but it's curious to me, and not having been part of the actual development of that agreement, I can't really understand it. I get it, but I don't get it.
It's subject to a court case. So by our legal agreement here, we are not allowed to charge them under our offsite levy bylaw. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for sharing as much as you could.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions from Council, Mr. Grattan, or administration based on the public hearing presentation? Seeing none, I will ask if anybody's in favor of the bylaw who's in the waiting room, possibly waiting to speak. Ms. Winter? I'm assuming not at this point.
Thank you, Mayor. We don't have any presenters for this evening for this bylaw.
Okay. I'm assuming also no one opposed or anybody else who wishes to be heard either?
Thank you, Mayor. We do not have anyone.
Thank you. Are there any more questions from Council for our presenter before I declare the public hearing closed? Administration must make a closing statement. Mr. Grattan?
No closing statements. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'll now declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to first reading of the bylaw. Is a member of council willing to make first reading of the bylaw, please? Councilor McCook, would you be willing to make that motion?
Sure, yeah. Item 6, bylaw 1008-22, a bylaw that amends the offsite levy bylaw, be given first reading.
Thank you very much. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, council, please vote accordingly on first reading. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Is a member of council willing to make motion for second reading this evening? Councilor Barnhart.
Yes, I would, Mayor.
Thank you. You'll be up here momentarily.
That I move that bylaw 1008-22 be given second reading.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, council, on second reading. So raise your hand if you have a question. If not, I'll move to vote on second reading. See no hands going up. I'll ask for the vote on second reading, please. And that carries unanimously. Thank you very much, council. And council, you will recall before we go to third reading, we must have consensus to move to third reading. So I'm going to ask, is there consensus for third reading among council? You raise your hands if you consent to third reading. Let's use our hand button. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Is a member of council willing?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you. So we do actually require a vote to go into third reading. It's not unanimous, like it's a unanimous consent, but we do require a vote.
Okay. I did see the hands go up, but let's go to the green buttons, please. So my error, council, would you please now use your vote buttons for consent to move to third reading? Thank you. That carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Winter, for pointing out that procedural error. Thank you. Is now a member of council willing to move third reading? Councilor Miller?
Sure, Mayor. I move that bylaw 1008-22 be given third reading.
Thank you. All those in favor of third reading, please vote accordingly. That carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Appreciate that. Now, with that, our next order of business is 7A, registered presentation. We have two this evening. Our first one starts at 6:30. So, Ms. Winter, are they in the waiting room by chance? If they're not, move on to something else until our guest speakers arrive in the waiting room.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have some of them here in the waiting room. I will just let them in here.
Okay.
And just confirm with them that all of their party is here.
Okay. We'll pause for a moment, council.
All right.
Is it just Mr. Romanchuk for the Black Gold this evening, is my understanding?
I do have other ones. Mr. Romanchuk, I just wanted to confirm with you how many you have attending this evening.
We have 3 school board trustees and 1 more associate superintendent.
Okay, I currently do have Chelsea Volkman, Devona Klassen, and Esther Eckhart.
And there should be Robin Steed as well.
Okay, I do not have Robin quite yet. We do have you scheduled for 6:30. So if we don't have everyone, maybe what I might do is move on to the next item until Robin does show up, if that's okay with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. We don't have all of the party yet. So if you want to continue on to the next item, wouldn't be until 7 p.m., but we could continue on to the agenda from there.
Yes, let's continue on then. We'll go to 8A, business items, and maybe we'll have Mr. Dowler or Mr. DeBlanco present as far as we can get onto this topic before we go back to 6:30 for our presentation of our Black Gold. So I believe, Mr. DeBlanco, are you going to introduce the 2021 year-end financial report?
Yes, that's correct.
You have the floor, sir. Thank you. And we will probably give you about 70 minutes, then we'll go back to our presenters, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening to the mayor and council. I'm Curtis DeBlanco. I'm the director of finance for the city. Before council is the year-end financial report for the 2021 budget year, which is attachment 1. Also included as attachment 2 is a list of projects to be considered for budget carry forward from 21 to 22 in order to continue and complete work on each of these projects. This report provides council with a look at the 2021 municipal operating, utility operating, and capital budgets versus actuals, as well as the anticipated surplus for each, and as well as the expected closing balances of the city's reserves. It's important to note that the figures in this report have not yet been audited. They're considered preliminary. As of now, the finance team is currently validating all the numbers through the year-end accounting processes, including adjusting and closing entries, which are still ongoing. The values are subject to change due to adjustments made as part of this year-end process and external audit. The city's 2021 audited financial statements are to be presented to council in April upon conclusion of the audit field work. At that time, the finalized surplus or deficit numbers will be presented. So for the city's municipal operating budget, I'll draw council's attention to page 92 of the agenda package. The 2021 municipal operating budget did not factor any adjustments such as reserve draws to offset any pandemic related impacts. Rather, the 21 budget reflected what would be an expected normal year of operations. And as you know, the 2021 budget did not include a tax levy increase. So the quarterly financial report for the third quarter of 2021 was presented on November 23rd, and it had forecasted a municipal operating surplus of approximately $200,000. And although it's preliminary, it is expected that at completion of the year-end audit, the 2021 municipal operating surplus will be slightly lower, approximately $100,000. As everyone well knows, provincial restrictions resulted in some service disruption for the city, which had an impact on the city's revenues to the tune of approximately $2.3 million. To minimize any resulting deficits from this decreased revenue, administration endeavored to reduce any unnecessary expenditures to offset this foregone revenue. These efforts resulted in a decrease to operating expenses of $2.1 million, which was citywide. When factoring in the forecasted change of $300,000, which is in the net transfers section of this report, the result is the projected surplus of approximately $100,000. This equates to about 0.25% of the municipal operating budget. An important point of note when considering this surplus is that the city did utilize the remaining available funds from the operating support grant, which came from the province, and this was to offset any lost revenue or increased expenses from the pandemic. So the city did utilize this revenue in the first quarter of the year. This amount, which is approximately $500,000, has been included in the government transfers line item, and this was required to be spent by the end of March. In absence of this transfer, administration would have expected a year-end deficit of approximately $400,000. Next, on utility operating, which is page 93, utility revenue expected to close at $1 million in excess of what was budgeted, and this excess is driven largely by the increased consumption at residential properties during the pandemic. There was more people at home. An increase in expenses of approximately $200,000 is driven by this increased consumption through purchase and processing of water and wastewater from their respective commissions. And the resulting surplus after net transfers is approximately $600,000. Administration will recommend that this surplus in the utility operating budget be transferred to the utility reserve when we come back in April. Next, capital, which is page 94. As of the end of the year, 24.3 million or 69% of the approved capital budget had been spent. Of the 31% that remained unspent at year end, 7.2 million or 21% is requested to be carried forward to 2022's budget in order to complete capital projects, which is seen in attachment 2. Approximately 3.4 million or 10% of the unspent amount represents savings on various projects. Savings were most notably realized on some of the renewal programs and as well as the Range Road 241 construction project. As these projects are funded from reserves and offsite levies, respectively, any unspent amount can remain in each of these accounts, and it would be available for future renewal and offsite levy projects. As stated previously, the figures in this attachment are preliminary and subject to adjustment as part of the year-end process and external audit. Next, page 95, I believe, is the city's reserve balances. It's anticipated that the operating budget will require reserve draws of approximately $1 million. which is 400,000 less than the budget amount of 1.4 million. This decrease is driven from phase-in and contingency funds that are likely to not be required, specifically in areas such as transit. Some specific one-time operating projects also are not requiring reserve draws for 2021, and these items are funds requested to be carried forward for the 2022 budget year, which is an attachment too. From capital reserves perspective, the entire $2.6 million is required to be to fund capital renewal projects for the 2021 year. However, no reserve draw is required for utility operations. Overall, it's anticipated that the closing balance of all reserves will be approximately $300,000 lower than what was forecasted from the 2021 budget. Next, budget carryforwards, which are on page 97 of the agenda package. The agenda provides a list of municipal operating and capital projects that administration is recommending to be carried forward into the 2022 budget in order for these projects to be completed. The approved 2022 budgets need to be amended by these amounts for administration to continue work on each of these. Approving these amendments will have no impact on 2022's property tax levy. With that, as previously noted, at this time, $100,000 municipal operating surplus is what's expected to be shown in April. Administration intends to bring forward recommendations to council in April on how these funds will be best allocated. And any recommendations are to be informed by council's reserve policy and will involve administration reviewing the balances of all reserves upon completion of the year end and identify the most appropriate reserve or reserves for the surplus to be transferred, as well as any reallocation of overfunded or underfunded reserve balances if required. The projected surplus for utility operations will be recommended to be transferred to the utility reserve and available to fund future capital or utility operating projects. With that, administration's recommendations this evening are that the 2021 year-end financial report be received as information and that the 2021 to 2022 budget carry forward as identified in attachment 2 be approved. This time I'll turn it back over to council. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Blanco, your timing was almost exactly on the money. Much appreciated. We'll come back to you then after our presenters in section 7A and 7B of our agenda. We'll come back and start prepping you with questions, I'm sure, on our financial status. But a surplus is always a good thing. So we appreciate that. We'll get back to you, Mr. Blanco. Thank you. Ms. Winter, can we see if our presenters are ready to go for 7A?
Thank you, Mayor. I do believe I have Robin here. I'm just trying to confirm here.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Romanchuk. I'm just trying to confirm that we have Robin here. I do have a phone number. I don't have a name, and I just wanted to confirm that it was her.
Thank you, Shalene. Yes, that is Robin.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll let the other guests in. Thank you, Mayor. Everyone has been added in for this item.
Thank you, Ms. Winter. Good evening, our guests from the Black Gold School Division. We have Ms. Romanchuk presenting this evening, along with Ms. Mona Clausen, the board chair of the Black Gold School Division, and some trustees as well on the phone call as well. So welcome to Beaumont City Council. You are registered as a presentation. So what we normally do, Bill, is we have you present for about 10 minutes, and then we have about a 4 to 5 minute question period. In person, we have a clock that ticks down. You'll be able to see it as a presenter, but very high tech tonight. At 2 minutes, I'm going to give you kind of a wave. I got 2 minutes left in your 10 minutes. Now, this is a big topic for us, and you're an important partner with us. So we need a little more than 10 minutes, a couple more minutes than 10 minutes. I can make that work and give us about 5 or 6 minutes for questions afterwards. Okay. So when you're ready, Mr. Romanchuk, the floor is yours, and I look forward to your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. May I share my screen, please?
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Are you seeing the first slide?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. I'm going to turn this over to our board chair, Devonna Clausen.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor Danilic and councillors, thank you so much for allowing us this opportunity to join you this evening to further explore Black Gold in the City of Beaumont, strengthening communities through strong partnerships. My name is Devonna Clausen, Chair of the Board of Trustees for Black Gold School Division and elected as a trustee in Ward 2, which is the Devon-Kalmar area. I'd like to begin by bringing greetings on behalf of the board. From Ward 1, Warburg-Thorsby area, Trustee Michelle Martin. From Ward 3, Leduc, we have trustees Barb Martinson, Angie Sharpenter, and Gary Hansen. And also joining us this evening from Ward 4, Beaumont New Sarepta area, as Trustee Robin Steed and Vice Chair Esther Eckert. And I'm going to turn it over to Trustee Steed.
Robin, are you there?
Trustee Steed was having some technical difficulties. For the sake of time, maybe I'll just keep moving with a couple of slides, and if she can jump in at some point, she's able to do that. So moving along then, we're talking about our core purpose is to inspire success. This is our litmus test. It's the main focus of everything we do. All that we do sort of revolves around this, to inspire success. And our values, these are our pillars, the guide, our moral compass. So our relationships, safe, caring, supportive environment, passion, responsible resource management. Sorry, I wasn't set up for this and I can't see the slides. So 1 second here. Perfect. And student-centered learning. So those cores of our moral compass. Black Gold is also a urban school division. This means that we have areas that are both urban as well as the rural. So we have that combination of the urban growth as well as the rural decline and the unique needs and challenges that come along with both of those pieces. Additionally, Black Gold offers considerable choice in schools. So as you know, we have our traditional brick and mortar schools. We also have a plethora of other options, including outreach, summer school, home schools. There's literacy camps, there's summer programs. So there's a whole breadth of additional pieces that come along with supporting the traditional schools. Trustee Eckert.
So Black Gold School Division has the goal of meeting the needs of all of the students. So we offer a multitude of programs in Beaumont, and I'm going to just touch on a few. The Knowledge and Employability courses, that's K&E, along with the LEAP program, provide students with exceptionalities the opportunity to achieve their potential and maximize their success. Career and technology studies allow students to gain experience in foods, mechanics, sports sciences, medical service, and that is just to name a few. There are a lot of CTS courses available at Beaumont Composite High School. Work experience, the registered apprenticeship program, the green certificate, off-camera courses, off-campus courses, these provide opportunities for students to build skills in their fields of interest. Through the dual credit courses, in partnership with some of the Alberta colleges, students can earn high school as well as college credits. So this gives them a head start on their post-secondary education. Next slide. So the next couple of slides are a bit of a walk down memory lane. 62 years ago, Bellevue was the first school opened in Beaumont. It was a K-9 school. It remained as such until 1977, when J.E. Lapointe welcomed Beaumont's junior high schools into its doors. As you can see, during these years, high school students had to go to Leduc or Edmonton to complete their education. There was no high school available in Beaumont until 1987, when the École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School opened, and it originally housed grades 8 to 12. As Beaumont continued to grow, 3 more schools were added, and over the years, modernizations, modern modular classrooms, and reconfiguration have kept pace with the growing demand for classroom space.
Thank you, Trustee Eckert, and Your Worship, over to the councillors. Want to indicate that first and foremost, the Black Gold School System is providing an excellent and very diverse educational opportunity for all of the students within the city of Beaumont. And I want to talk a little bit about their about the history as well. And we have worked together with the city of Beaumont, and quite frankly, we have grown and we have developed along with the city of Beaumont. Originally with Catholic instruction, we worked with the local parish to provide Catholic instruction and sacraments. We do have French immersion in all of our neighborhood schools. And you notice that we do have the BRAC, or what was the BRAC at one time, and J.E. Lapointe School are co-joined. When we added Dansero Meadows School, École Dansero Meadows School, we not only shared that with the city of Beaumont, their FCSS offices are there, along with Star Catholic School. And we share a parking lot where the city of Beaumont has put up a rink in the back park there, and our parking lot is a synergy that is realized with the city. Also, École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School, very recently, four-season park. The city just put in a new turf field, and we are hoping in the near future to add a clubhouse to that. And of course, we're going to share the parking lot. And we do have at École Bellevue School a skating rink. And École Champ-Vallée, the school council is getting funding to build an outdoor classroom that will be available not only to the students in the school, but also to the citizens of Beaumont. And of course, we share a parking lot because there are playing fields close by. Other things beyond school, we have co-hosted the 2008 Winter Olympics with the city of Beaumont. We've been in consultation on the rec centers. The city of Beaumont invited us for consultation on the school resource officer program. We always give our schools over to stations for elections, and the outreach school currently resides at the CCBCC. We know that Beaumont is a growing population and grows about 3% or about 400 students per year in all of Black Gold, and that is primarily in Beaumont and Leduc, as we know. We've added in the last 5 years almost 1,200 new seats for students within the city of Beaumont, but you notice that those are not seats at the high school level. We did an expansion of École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School to its total capacity of 1,100 students. There can be no more additions to that school. It's fully built out. We have also built schools in Leduc, most recently West Haven, and we have a 1,600 seat high school that is groundbreaking, will probably be in April of this year. Doors open September 2024. I want to take a look at the utilization rates for the schools within the city of Beaumont, and you'll notice that they're all in the 80% plus. We do have an anomaly there, and I've asterisked 3 schools where we are doing a utilization review because those are falling out of norm. But it's important to note that École Beaumont Composite High School at this particular point, even with the addition, is at almost 90% capacity today. I want to take a look at our 10-year capital plan. So in 2017-18, we contracted out for consultation on a 10-year capital plan, and we are 5 years into that. And we expected 44% growth in the city of Beaumont. At 5 years in, exactly halfway, we are within 78 students of that total 44%. So we are on track. We also, during that time, it was identified to us that we would be reaching our capacities very soon. Leduc in the year 2021 and Beaumont by 23-24. To be honest, Leduc is probably over capacity right now in their high school, and we are anxiously awaiting the new high school that will open up in 2024. We did do a walkthrough of the expansion of École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School, and of course, there were upgrades to not only the size, but also the, Mayor Daniluk? Thank you. Wanted to do this by the numbers. Now, we do understand that Star Catholic, of course, is there as one of our partners in education, and we realize that they are also looking for a high school, and we are fully prepared to partner with them. We wanted to run some numbers and just to illustrate that should none of the students from Star Catholic come to our schools, we would by 25, 26 be full of students. And if we were to get only 50% of the Star students, which happens in Leduc, that would then be by the year 24, 25, we would have reached capacity at École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School. And if we continue the trend where we are right now, where we take 100% of all their students, they don't have a high school, by 23, 24, we are going to be at capacity. Want to be very specific about the ask here. And it's important to note that as a school division, we do not build schools. What we do is we send a request into Alberta Education, and then they review the request based on its merits. One of the things that would be necessary for us to have serious consideration is a letter from the city or the developers guaranteeing a shovel-ready school site large enough to accommodate this particular school. And the school would have an initial capacity of 1,000 students with a build out to 1,600. The recommended footprint of that is going to be 18.6 acres. This would include the playing fields, the parking lots, and also it would need to have feeder roads so to accommodate for the traffic. The timeline for the project is given there. If we were to receive that letter next month, the doors to the new school could open as early as September 2026. Things to consider as we move forward is community partnerships. We absolutely would love to be associated with other amenities within the city of Beaumont. This could include recreation or cultural buildings, arts, health facilities, those sorts of things. The other thing is that we are very conscious of that we need to be proximal to restaurants. One of the things that we don't have at École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School is access to these amenities and proximal to other education partners. Do we have contingencies? Absolutely, we do. Should we get full? There is room for 3 temporary modules at École Secondaire Beaumont Composite High School. That would add about space for about 75 students. And we also do have room for about 100 students in each of New Sarepta Community High School and John Malin High School. And we could, though we wouldn't want to, bus students from Beaumont to these places to have them finish up their high school. Madam Chair.
You know, we absolutely love this statement of yours. The City of Beaumont's vision for the future is to become a culturally diverse community of choice for livability and economic innovation with a vibrant arts community, ample recreational activities, and a healthy environment. It's brilliant. What is most striking from this is the multitude of opportunities here for Black Gold to work in partnership with you in order to achieve this goal. Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak this evening, and we welcome any questions you might have.
Thank you, Board Chair and Mr. Romanek. Appreciate that. We're actually a little more than 10 minutes, but I hope you a little attitude is always a good thing. And I know you appreciate how fast 10 minutes goes by when you're presenting to a group of people. It actually flies by, doesn't it? Appreciate that very much. At this point, I'll open up the questions from council to our guest presenters. I'll start with Councilor Muncroft-Swain. Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Joe, Mr. Mayor, and I really appreciate the presentation coming in today. I think that the numbers speak for themselves. The urgency speaks for itself. So thank you for putting that clearly in a tight package. But I think everyone on this call is aware of the urgency around this. The question I had, speaking to the timeline that was shared, this is a question for administration. Can you just remind folks of the timeline? We did have an initial discussion in February with the direction for administration to come back to provide some more information around, I think as everyone's aware on this call, we can't provide a letter right now, shovel ready, because we just don't have the land, but administration was going to come back. Could administration just speak to the timelines around that, please?
I'll start off here and then maybe Kendra, you can weigh in. Thank you very much for your question, Councilor Muncroft-Swain. There's Johannes. Administration is currently developing a report with recommendations that will include when we will be ready to provide such a letter. Kendra, Johannes, you want to give us a little more detail?
Yes, from Councillor to Councillor Montcosme, the administration is currently working on finding an area which will house the future, not only for the high school, for Black Gold school boards, but also Star Catholic. So we will be coming back with the report by the end of Q1. So probably by reading the presentation, it won't necessarily meet Black Gold's timeline of having a letter by March 2022, but it will be very close. If the information that we gather through the research, through negotiation with developers, if we are able to get any confirmation, we will be close, and then council will be able to make a decision on which site will be able to proceed. So everything across.
Yeah, we're all crossing our fingers here, mate. The question I guess that I had is, so report coming back in March, and forgive me if you can't answer this, but is that going to be a report and then more work to go away, or do we think that administration is going to be in a position to put council in a position to make a decision at the end of March, or are we not there yet?
I'm hoping to have the information. I cannot provide any further details on for example, the costing, everything, because we are engaged with a consultant to get those numbers, and also working with developers on even identifying the site to go with to get those numbers. So, but we are hopeful that we will have some solid information to present to council.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I guess I just wanted to set the context for, I won't speak on behalf of council, but, we've obviously talked about this. We're well aware of the ask, and knowing that the March timeframe is going to be when we get that report. I just wanted to make sure that our guests here heard that, and kind of what information will be in front of us, recognizing a decision needs to be made. So thank you for that additional background. And again, thanks to the presenters, really good information. And pretty stark to see it in black and white with the numbers there. So thank you. That's all from me, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor, any further councillors have any questions for our presenters? Councillor Miller, Ashley, you have the floor, followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Go ahead, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you. Yes, like Sam said, putting that kind of right in front of us, it's really good to see the numbers. And honestly, this is something that's very much on our radar. I think all of us can agree that we want to have something moving as soon as we can. It's definitely a need. I attended Beaumont High School when I was in high school, and I'm surprised that it's still, the only high school that we have here. So I definitely see the need for that as well. I had just a question around the modular. You mentioned that there is room for 3 extra temporary modular buildings and, for growth at the high school, which is unfortunate, to have to even say or think about that, as I think it's pretty clear we do need an actual building. But how does that affect the whole letter? And if you were to get those modular buildings, does that kind of compromise the letter saying we need a new school, showing them that you have enough room now because of those modular buildings? Would that be an issue? I guess that's my first question.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. First and foremost, we already have those 3. They are on site, and we were using them to decant students while we were doing the modernization. So they are available to us. The short answer is probably not. What we're looking at more than anything is the things that we know that will help us move to the front of the queue are going to be the partnerships, and we've long enjoyed that partnership with the city of Beaumont, and we're hoping to continue that in the future. And from the sounds of things, I think we're all on the same page.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Romanchuk. Just a quick question, maybe not so much related to the high school, but in the utilization rate, I was surprised to see that J. LaPointe's at 66%. Is that substantially lower than years in the past?
Mm-hmm.
If you'll remember, Councillor, that we've just undertaken a modernization there. And so there was an expansion to that as well. Also, the last time we added a school, when students are directed in certain areas, there are areas of growth and areas of where the communities are mature. And so we're taking a look at that right now to see whether or not we can level the playing field for all of the schools.
Right, good point. Yeah, I think I was just maybe a little surprised given that I believe J. LaPointe is one of the two, or maybe the only one that has that BHA program for that grade level. So I was a little surprised by that, but thank you for explaining that. That's really all for me at this point. Like I said, I echo what Sam said. This is something that we need to get movement on as fast as we can. So thanks for the presentation.
Thanks, Councillor. We are well past time, but Steve, please, may I ask a quick question if you could, please, Steve, and hopefully a quick answer, and then I'll wrap things up. Councillor Newt, you have the floor, Steve.
Yeah, you bet. Just a quick comment and then a question. And you highlighted in the presentation that Equal Bellevue had a star beside it, and you were undertaking a capacity study. Is that correct? Yeah. So yeah, just anecdotally, I've heard that there was room there, and there was some underutilized portions of that. Just in passing with people in the community. So I'll be interested to hear what the outcome of that is. So thank you for putting that star there and bringing that to our attention. Question for Mr. Romanchuk, I guess, regarding the 18.6 acres presented in the presentation. Can you speak to us around how that area requirement is developed? And then specifically where I'm going with this is, what opportunities exist for Black Gold to work with, smaller pieces of land, depending on what options or recommendations administration is able to present. I wanted to get this question out now so that, we have an answer and a little bit of conversation, because I don't know what administration is going to bring back. And, if they bring back a scenario where there's a piece of land that's smaller, then I wanted to make sure to highlight and have that conversation now. So any comment?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Yeah, these are guidelines that are developed by Alberta Infrastructure and Alberta Education, and they do include playing fields that are also part of this. And so again, there's an opportunity for partnership where there may be a recreation opportunity for the city of Beaumont to partner with us. And of course, the big footprint is going to also include the parking lot, where there's a huge synergy available for the city and ourselves in that as well. We did take a quick look at what are the options in terms of going vertically. We actually consulted with the Work and Garrick Partnership, which is one of the architects that we've used in the past. In fact, they're the one that we used with Ecole Secondary Beaumont Composite High School. They are the ones that built a 4-story school in Edmonton. And by going up to 4 stories, the savings on the footprint would only be about 3,500 square meters, which is about 0.86 of an acre. So not a lot of savings in that regard. The savings come through the synergies.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what I was hoping you'd highlight around the playing fields and the parking lots, right? When you can realize the daytime use through to the evening use on another. So thank you very much for answering those questions. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councillor. We are well past time. However, I'm happy to do that because this is an important topic for you to be heard as a partner with us, and important for you to hear from us too, how important it is to us as a council to move this forward and do our obligation to find service land for schools instruction. So I'm very happy to giving you extra time this evening to make sure your message is heard loud and clear by council and the public in general, and also you hear the comfort zone that we as a council are dedicated ourselves to making sure we get something done for school sites in the very near possible future. And I do believe the report's coming back in March. I'm looking forward to something coming from that that's very concrete for us to work on. So on behalf of council, I want to thank our guests this evening from Black Gold School Division to come and talk to us. Look forward to seeing you guys again. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming this evening. Ms. Winter, I do believe our next presenters are probably in the waiting room. Is that correct?
Hello, Mayor. Actually, no, our presenter has not arrived yet. So my recommendation would move back onto 8A, and I'll just keep watching the waiting room for our presenter to come.
Okay, thank you, Council. Our next presenter is due at 7 o'clock, so there may be a very brief discussion, Mr. DeBlanco. So if you will, we can go back now to 8A, which is the 2021 year financial report. And any questions for Mr. DeBlanco at this time, we can answer before our presenter arrives in the guest room. Surplus is good? Okay. Councillor Barnhart, your hand went up first, then followed by Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. So Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you. I want to get my question in here. I have two questions. The first one is, I don't have it up on my screen right now. I've got to get it. Regarding the 72% variance for legal and legislative services in the operating expenses, Mr. DeBlanco, I'm sure there's good reason for the monies being moved around within the budget. We're working to the bottom line. I get that, but that one stood out to me as quite a significant expenditure. Could you just remind me what that was about?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Barnhart. So if council recalls, we discussed some of the mid-year additions to the legal and legislative department. There was 2 FTEs added mid-year, found through efficiencies in other spots in the budget. So that would constitute the majority of that variance on that department.
I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't 100% sure. And my second question is regarding the under expenditure for the arts feasibility study, the arts facility feasibility study. And I don't see that being carried forward. So I'm just wondering about the why the under expenditure is 9,000 out of the 35,000 was spent.
So I apologize. I can't speak specifically on the status of that project. We didn't receive a carry forward request for that. So if there's additional work, it would either be completed as part of the existing budget for 2022, or there would probably likely be no longer require any more funding for that.
Is there a way of being sure of that before we pass this, or can we go back and open this up again if we need to?
So the answer to that is, if there's any other additions to the 2022 budget required, we do have the budget amendment coming forward in April. And so that's where we reconcile the difference between real and actual growth, as well as make any additional budget additions at that time. And if there was any sort of reconciliation process on the carry forwards required, administration will bring that change at that time.
Okay, I have to think about that, but I mean, it concerns me if someone hasn't brought something forward, but we haven't checked with them. Should we be more proactive about that?
So like I said before, the finance sends out to all the departments the request for additional dollars. Just because a request didn't come forward for additional dollars doesn't mean the work isn't necessarily going to be completed. It's just that there isn't a requirement for additional budget dollars. Once again, we'll reconvene specifically on that with the project manager, ensure that they do have the amount of money required to complete the project. But this is specifically for projects that are requiring budget carry forward from 21 to 22.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Councillor. And with that, it's 6:59. So Steve, we'll come back to your question after we have our next presenter, who's now on the waiting room waiting for us. Thanks, Steve. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Appreciate that. Ms. Winter?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll let Ian in.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Ian is now in the meeting.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Gallagher. Welcome to Beaumont City Council meeting.
Hi.
At this time, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Quick thing, I'll have Ms. CEO Schwartz introduce you in a moment, but just so you know, we allow about 10 minutes for your presentation. Normally in our in-person meeting, we have a clock you can watch as you speak. What I'll do is at the 2-minute mark, I'll give you kind of a wave, 2-minute wrap up roughly, and then we'll take questions from council on your presentation, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you.
CEO Schwartz, please introduce our guest speaker.
Hey, welcome, Ian. So everybody, this is Ian Gallagher. Ian Gallagher works with the city of Edmonton. Ian's been involved in the CED from day one, which was August 2020. Ian, remember that meeting?
Yeah.
Yes, in Devon. He has taken on the bulk of the heavy lifting. He's been using different working groups that include different skill sets from different parts of the region, including Beaumont, GR, and planning and development folks. And he's going to talk about the model. That's kind of how it's going to set itself up. So I don't want to take any thunder away from you, Ian, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for stepping up. Council, the purpose of this presentation is to bring all the new councillors and the returning ones up to date on the program. With that, Mr. Gallagher, all yours, Ian.
Thanks, Mike. Should I be presenting a screen? All right, I will just share my screen.
Yep, go right ahead.
Give me a thumbs up. Do you see the slide deck?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, so I'll just dive right in. So the Collaborative Economic Development Initiative is a new approach to economic development that's been jointly developed by willing municipal partners. So the initiative aims to improve the cost competitiveness to help attract non-residential investment to the region, coordinate business processes and identify focus areas, and incentivize partners to work together to reduce the intermunicipal competition. So this is an important moment in the region, and it's time to think big. You know, this is a major opportunity for the Edmonton metropolitan region to do some great things, to work together to attract foreign direct investment and to build a better future for our region. So economic development contributes to a region's economic diversity and resilience by attracting new businesses and jobs. Regional economic development can also reduce intermunicipal competition, boost competitiveness, attract investment, and generate more revenue for local governments. SED's our roadmap towards achieving these regional goals and benefits. So this new and innovative initiative will strengthen existing collaboration efforts and complement the work that's already being done in the region to attract and support investment. The initiative will develop a competitive offering tailored to meet business investment needs and attract non-residential growth and investment opportunities. It'll provide a framework to jointly develop shovel-ready land and incentivize businesses to locate there by providing business-appropriate infrastructure. Oh, sorry. There we go. Framework to jointly develop shovel-ready land and incentivize businesses to locate there by providing business-appropriate infrastructure, utilities, and service levels, and reducing red tape and costs to business by streamlining service delivery and leveraging municipal strengths. And it also has a new revenue sharing mechanism where partners can receive a direct benefit proportionate to their level of investment. The key benefits that SED brings to the table is that it creates an opportunity to generate revenue from non-residential growth outside of our individual municipal boundaries. It's going to help large impact investments choose to locate in the region at lower individual costs for each individual municipality. It's going to create more competitive offerings across the region. It's going to encourage responsible growth by being aligned to our statutory and our non-statutory plans, such as the EMRB growth plans, any of our ASPs or our NDPs or the like. And it's also, you know, I can't stress enough, it's going to reduce the intermunicipal competition. So we're actually working together. We're working together to build something tangible. So in short, partnering in this way allows our region to better align ourselves so that we can attract new types of investment, essentially increasing the size of the proverbial pie rather than simply dividing up the existing one. So the conceptual framework of how we're going to do this is, you know, the partners, the municipalities that are partnering on this, you know, we're developing a series of tools and policies to attract additional non-residential business investment. It's all about that. This could include incentives, process improvements, infrastructure investments, or the like. You know, we're going to work together to identify investment locations throughout the region that are aligned to key sector opportunities. So we talk about, you know, what are we actually looking for? You know, we talk about artificial intelligence. We talk about some of these sectors that we're choosing to target to draw into our region. That's what we're looking for. We want to work with partners to attract businesses to these locations. So by partners in this case, you know, it could be the other municipalities, it could be the Edmonton Globals, it could be anyone, it could be the provincial government or even the federal government. We want to share the costs associated with getting the identified land ready for the business investment. And then lastly, but most importantly, we want to share in the direct benefits such as property tax and any other revenues that we can generate from that new business investment. So on April 12th in 2021, all 13 municipalities in the region signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding, to jointly develop a framework for collaborative economic development. This MOU demonstrates commitment from the municipalities in the region to actively work together to attract business investment. It sets out broad guidance in terms of reference for a multi-partner approach to develop a meaningful and mutually beneficial economic partnership framework that will benefit the region. This MOU is not legally binding, but as we move forward and we actually start to do any development or any cash investments into some of these focus areas, we're going to have a little bit more of a binding agreement. But this is all part of the work. We're working on this now, and next time we chat, we'll have a little bit more detail of how we're actually going to play this one out. Any land development or incentive costs or anything beyond what we're building here, the framework, will be a future council decision. So once again, while we've been empowered to do some work on kind of building this model, building this framework, we will be coming back to you and your counterparts in all the partner municipalities to ask for some guidance and direction. And of course, your authorization to proceed as we start to actually build this out. The framework's also being developed so that non-municipal partners can participate and their input will be essential. So, it is absolutely in the realm of the possible that First Nations communities could actually be an equal partner in some of these initiatives. We could see other organizations such as the EIA or other groups could choose to participate. These are all conversations to have down the road, but right now it is absolutely in the realm of the possible. So 6 big guiding principles that we use to build this framework. And some of them are big changes. And it's been wonderful to get the support and the guidance of the CAOs and the mayors so far to start to sort of explore expanding some of these boundaries. But these are also the guiding principles or riverbanks for the project. So we all agree to share the revenue proportionate to the level of investment. We want to be prepared to invest in property outside of our own municipal boundaries. The focus is all on attracting new non-residential growth. So this is new to the region. So this is not just shuffling, moving the deck chairs around. This is all new stuff that we're going to be pulling into our region. It's building upon regional agreements and regional work by other organizations. So we've done some work, with the ECDEV organizations. We've talked to the Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Innovation on a regular basis. We're getting out there and we want to take all the work that they've done and build upon that. So that's the key for this. And all policies and process. So this is business improvement. This is the proverbial red tape. Once we start identifying some of these locations, we're going to look at making any of these policies or processes better for that business investor. So we want to make it good, fast, and easy for them to do business in our areas. And then the participation in this whole project is voluntary. So right now, it just so happens we have all 13 municipalities in the region participating with us. However, municipality can choose to not participate, or they can come in, come out. It's going to become a little bit more tangible once we have actually start building stuff together. But that'll be future conversations, and we'll come back to you and explain how we anticipate that to work out. So quick overview of how the project works. So the project's deliverables are being produced by a working group with members from 6 partner municipalities. We're responsible for developing all project deliverables, and no consultants are being used right now. So this is all, we have wonderful staff members, and we've had support from Beaumont up until recently, and I'm sure it will continue. But we're all just kind of rolling up our sleeves and working together on this. So there's no consultants. We just have a wonderful group of people from a bunch of different municipalities in the region, and we're all working together and collaborating in a really, really wonderful and encouraging way. So that's our working group. And then with that, we have the Liaison Committee. And so what this does is this kind of rounds out the rest of the participants. So we have 13 partners. We want to have all 13 partners rowing rowing in the same direction, up to speed and understanding what we're doing. So we expand the tent a little bit more to have, government relations people or economic development officers and the like kind of participating in the project that way. We also have a steering committee that's comprised of sort of all the 13 partners, chief administrative officers. And, they are providing that strategic advice and, they're core for the deliverables. They review these, they sign them off, they provide us that sort of hands-on support, just as you'd expect from a steering committee. And then finally, there's the Oversight Committee, which is made up of the 13 partner municipality mayors. And, generally at that point, there are support from a political point of view and provide that strategic direction as well and provide any of that political guidance. And in some cases, this is where we use as a touch point to other political bodies such as ministers and other orders of government. So we're delivering this using a phased approach, and there's 4 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are now complete. So phase 1 and 2 basically contain the following deliverables. We did the MOU, got some of that sort of foundational governance in place. We did a communication plan. We did some reviews of best practices, summarized them, produced them into recommendations. And then we did some feasibility analysis on, does this make sense? And so far, so good. So currently, the team's working on phase 3, which includes a detailed site analysis and selection. So we're starting to get our head around where will these focus areas be located and what's the process we need to follow to kind of pull them into our tent. We want to do some process improvement analysis. So what's the best practice? So how long should it take to get a development permit? How much should it cost? How can we work with these businesses to make them come to our region and locate and start investing quickly? We're producing an incentive framework, and then we're validating some of the key models. So this is from a partnership model. So this has not been done anywhere else. There's little parts here and there of different partnerships across municipalities, but nothing to this scale, nothing in Western Canada. So we are definitely breaking some ground. But what we're doing is we're talking to other jurisdictions that have done this, and we're kind of producing a hybrid model. So first off, it's got to work in Northern Alberta under our MGA and such, but it also has to make sense and it also has to be attractive to business. So once again, we'd love to come back and chat with you in the future and let you know some of our findings. And then the future activities that we're working on, we want to do some process improvement recommendations. We want to do some more financial modeling. So we want to see exactly where the dollars and cents are going to fall out. What type of mill rate do we need to set to make it competitive so we can compete with Louisiana or Massachusetts? We want to do an implementation plan. So once again, this is all a tabletop exercise right now. We want to come up with a plan for how we can actually start building things. And then, of course, we want to close things out. And that in a nutshell is this said project. Thank you for your time. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
And Mr. Gallagher, it's just almost exactly a little more than 10 minutes, but just right on the money. I saw you were wrapping up there, so I didn't want to interrupt you. So I do appreciate that. A lot of information, a lot of great stuff here too. So Council, questions for our presenter, please. Councilman Swain, Sam, you have the floor.
Yeah, thanks, Ian, for the update. A lot of great work there. Appreciate that. I got some specific questions, but I wonder if you could help me just more broadly. You talk about investment opportunities. Can you just paint the picture of like what are we talking about here? Just help us wrap our minds around what that could be. Give us a couple of examples.
That's a good question. And the first thing we have to remember is we are municipal governments and we have to look at our revenue streams. And while artificial intelligence and some of these businesses that we choose to pursue as a collective, they don't necessarily have that strong alignment to assessment value. So at the end of the day, we're looking for good assessment, strong assessment, and then of course we put our mill rate on top of that, and that's kind of our property tax. And so the way we're approaching this is, well, some businesses are interesting. We need to kind of pull it back to that assessment. So because of that, we're looking at that sort of medium to large scale manufacturing or transportation logistics, kind of that large brick and mortar kind of footprint that will find that balance. We are exploring some options for how we can address, something that might be a little bit more labor intensive, income tax intensive, but right now we're really trying to think like the polycar investment right now that is they produce plastics, and that is kind of our baseline concept for what we're thinking about for a type of investment.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for helping explain that. A specific question, and forgive my ignorance just around this topic, but does it help when we're looking at cost of capital? I don't know, like, if does Beaumont have a different credit rating than the city of Edmonton? Are we going through the same process? Does it help, to partner with some of those larger municipalities, or are we going through that same corporation and the credit ratings are pretty similar?
I think it's more of an issue of diversification. So what it allows is, we can really leverage the strengths that we have as a region. And so Beaumont has a wealth in some areas, but not so much in others. And then there's other municipalities that are almost a mirror image. So we'll find municipalities that will have great tracts of industrial land that's all ready to go, that's properly planned out. And what we're hoping to do is try to find, a bunch of different opportunities. So the concept is, we do one of these focus areas, one of these places, and then we do another, and then we do another, and we kind of build it out. And so just as we look at a well-balanced personal portfolio of stocks and such, we hope that we'll have a similar kind of balance as we move forward over time. So we might see some heavy industry that's located in a place that's currently set up for that. We might have some smaller density office buildings or such, or some transportation logistics facilities. So as we look at that overall portfolio, I think that's how we would kind of all play together.
Yeah, that's great. And I think it'd be, I think you're well aware that you need to focus on a couple of key areas, and you could get lost if you try to solve or boil the ocean there. So interested in that. The last one for me, you touched on the Indigenous portion of this. You're familiar with the Alberta Indigenous Opportunities Corporation. Have you had those conversations and potentially leveraging that with the recent announcements?
We are absolutely having those conversations. We're right in the thick of it right now. So we've had a few high-level conversations with some of our the working group representatives have colleagues that are in the Indigenous relations space. So we've cautiously reached out, and right now we are on the agenda through Enoch as well as Alexander right now, and we're slowly working our way through that process. And we were making some very good progress in that space in the summertime, but it was paused for greater issues and greater concerns. And so we pulled back on that. However, we do still intend to present and discuss some opportunities at those tables.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think that corporation could be a great venue to kind of kick that off. And speaking of cost of capital and helping there with those government loan guarantees. So I'll leave it there. Thanks very much. Great update. I really appreciate the presentation and looking forward to seeing you guys work through these phases. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor. Before I go to Councilor Chester, I have a quick question, Mr. Gallagher. How does this organization coexist with Edmonton Global?
I'm glad you asked.
I thought you might appreciate that question. So if you don't mind giving us an idea how these two work together and or do they not work together? I'm assuming they do, but there could be some hiccups along the way. So if you don't mind, please.
No, I'm glad you asked that one. And, Malcolm and I talk on a regular basis. Malcolm Bruce, who kind of leads Edmonton Global, we chat, and, I think that we have a really good complementary connection here. And so the way I always look at it is, Edmonton Global, they're a service organization, and they go out into the world, and their job is to attract foreign direct investment and get them to come to the region. They promote trade to and from the region as well. And then they provide, and, as we move forward, they're going to be the ones that provide information on SAD to these potential investors. And so on the other side of the table, you know, we have SED, and what SED is, we're the product. So Edmonton Global, they're the sales agents. They're going out in the world. They have the longitudinal view of what's going on, but then they bring that investor back here. And then SED is the product. We want SED to be the best in breed solution that's very, very attractive to these investors. We're going to have assembled inventory of investments, so little pockets of land throughout the region with specific locational advantages. And then we're going to offer, you know, pre-qualified and, you know, customized incentives. So we're going to make it easier for them to get these things. We're not just going to be kicking them to a website and saying, contact them and fill out their forms. We want to hold their hand a little bit. And then, you know, what we want ultimately is SED to be the preferred option for the investor proposals that are kind of handled through Global. So we want to be kind of on top of all their brochures of all the different opportunities in the region.
Thanks, Ian. A very good answer. I do appreciate that. We have two more council with questions. I will ask if they could to try and be as brief as possible. Keep in mind of our time, but I want to be everybody have a chance to talk and ask good questions. So, Councillor Tessier, you have the floor first, followed by Councillor McCook. So, Renee, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Ian, for the presentation. And great question by Mr. Mayor. I really wanted to understand the difference between yourself and Edmonton Global. Obviously, as a new councillor, these presentations are great information, and seeing both you and Edmonton Global doing this for Beaumont is good to know. Now, obviously, you know, we have a high residential tax base and a low commercial tax base. So if something does get brought to Beaumont, when you talked about tangible outcomes, it would be nice to know, you know, what has Edmonton Global delivered for Beaumont? What will you guys deliver for Beaumont, so that we can actually use that and say, you know, you've actually helped the community out in this way, along with the region. And we're working on a tough tax situation. So I really want to understand how the tax revenues work. Say Leduc County gets this big building. How do we receive tax revenue from that? Because they built outside the city of Beaumont.
Yes. No, it's definitely a challenge. And, you know, being from the city of Edmonton, I feel that, you know, Beaumont and Edmonton are very similar in a number of different ways. You know, we are urbans, you know, we provide a high degree of services, rec centers, things like that. And sometimes we're a little bit out in the cold when it comes to a wonderful announcement in one of the counties that, you know, due to their low tax rates, well, they don't have to pay for rec centers and such. Due to their low tax rates, they're able to be very aggressive and land some of this business. And so how SED would work for Beaumont is similar to how it would work for Edmonton. It would be, let's find a good chunk of land. It will probably not be in Beaumont, because we might be looking at sort of a 5 to 10 acres of industrial spot to get things going. However, even though it's not in Beaumont, Beaumont could contribute 10% of the costs of getting this land up and going, you know, some of the hard infrastructure and, you know, roads and pipes and all the stuff that needs to be done to get this land ready for these investors to actually build their buildings. Beaumont could contribute to that and then, of course, get that revenue. So it's almost like expanding the logical boundaries of Beaumont for revenue generating purposes. And so it makes Beaumont just a little bit bigger. You don't get the full pull. Like if something's in Beaumont, you get every cent that is collected for that. But you get a portion, you know, if it's in Devon or Leduc or Parkland County, you know, you get a portion of whatever Beaumont chose to contribute. It's voluntary as well. It's an asymmetrical contribution model. So it's not fully aligned to, you know, population, or there's no boundaries. It's more like a negotiation at that point. And then the last thing is, you know, as far as how we work with Global, but we'll also be working with Invest Alberta. We'll also be working with Invest in Canada. We'll also be working with JEI. We'll be working with any organization that attracts investment to the region. And so if Global comes with a lead, that's great, but we could also be having the same conversation around Invest Alberta gave us the lead as well, and tip the hat to them.
Great. Yeah, no, thank you. Those are great answers, and it explains a lot. So thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Councillor. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Ian, for your presentation tonight. I think you answered my question a little bit in regards to Renee's question. It was around your guiding principles and how to share revenue proportionate to level of interest. So that's kind of what you answered there, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So will every opportunity then come back to council to determine our level of interest in each project?
I believe so, and I would look to Mike for his guidance of how we would play this one out. But some of these questions have yet to be answered about how the governance model will play out. But I do think the decision will still lie with the councils.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback off of that, that's one of the attractions of this model, is they haven't created a separate governance model. So it would come back as soon as you're going to purchase land, assign resources, significant amount of resources, that's coming to council. So that's the way we see it modeling out. But as Ian says, it's got to be fleshed out a little bit more, but this is definitely much more nimble.
Okay, thank you. And then you said in turn, it will reduce the regulatory burden on businesses and developers by eliminating a duplication of services. Can you expand just, I know in a concise manner, how you guys are looking to do that?
So we have to be very careful with the breadth of how we choose to do this. And Mike was very good with some guidance on this that I remember 6 months, a year ago. And that's why we chose to go with these focus areas. So we're not trying to do a harmonization of how does Beaumont do business, and how let's try to integrate that with 12 other municipalities in the region. And oh my goodness, there's no chance of success with that in our lifetime. So what we did is we thought, okay, let's think about these pockets. So we call them focus areas, and think about it, anywhere between say 5 acres and a quarter section. So it's a pretty wide array. Then we would sort of stake out this area, and then we would almost we might actually have to just create it from scratch, a best in breed model for how we interact with the businesses in that space. So the onus would ultimately be on the host jurisdiction. However, we would have to concoct something that, is good and fast and cheap for the business. And by cheap, I'm not talking bad. I'm just saying, if we have to have the local the host jurisdiction's city manager signing off on a development permit to close the deal, I think it's something we're prepared to do in the short term while we figure things out. And then in the longer term, we can conduct sort of proper change management and kind of build a little bit more of a resilient system.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor. Seeing no further questions, Mr. Gallagher, thank you for your presentation. A lot of information, a lot of great information, and I look forward to seeing you in front of council sometime again with any questions council may have of you in the future. So thanks for coming, Mr. Gallagher. I appreciate it.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for
Thanks,
your time.
Ian.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, council, we appreciate that last presentation. It's now 7:30. I'm going to call a 5-minute recess, and we'll come back, finish off Mr. DeBlanco's section on the financial report, jump into the advocacy campaign, into the bylaw on business bylaw, first, second, and third reading. So with that, I'll call a 5-minute recess. It's 7:28. Let's come back at 7:35. Make it 7 minutes. Okay, we are now back live, so I'll call the meeting back to order, and I appreciate the patience with the little break we needed. And we'll continue now. Mr. DeBlanco, for the third and last time this evening, we're going to get this financial year-end report finalized. And I left off with the Councilman Newkirk had a question. Is Steve, you ready to go with your question? Please proceed, Steve.
Yeah, you betcha. My question was just around carry forwards. So just wondering if you could explain a little bit more clearly what carry forwards are and how they get there. And yeah, start there. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the question through to Councillor Van Newkirk. So carry forwards are the amounts for specific one-time projects that were started in a prior budget year, that if a project is not completed at year end, those funds are still required to complete the project. So on attachment 2, we have a couple operating carry forwards for specific projects, as well as a few capital ones that as at year end, they're not completed. The budgets are not the budgets for those specific projects have not been spent yet. So this mechanism just allows increasing the 2022 budget by the amount that is unspent from 2021.
Yeah, you bet. And what I would say, and the reason I asked that, I just wanted to, make a couple of comments. So in a more normal year, this is where I would say, how come we have so many? Why didn't we get done what we needed to? All those kinds of things, but that's not where I'm at today. We took on a lot of work last year with some extraordinary pressures and circumstances, and there are some things to finish off here to make sure that we get them buttoned up and done right. So that's where my head is at on the budget carry forwards. In future years, I'd like to see this list really short. Because that means that we were efficient in getting projects initiated, bidded, procured, under construction, and working within, the construction timelines that we have. But yeah, that's all I have for this one here, Mayor Dunlop.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions for Mr. DeBlanco on the 2021 year-end financial report? I have one quick question, Mr. Blanco, if you don't mind. So on page 2 of the RFD, it talks about in the capital paragraph, approximately 3.4 million, or roughly 10% of unspent amount, represents savings on various projects. So is it safe to say that project we did get done in 2021 came in under budget or came in very well to what we were expecting? That's a pretty good number, 3.4 million in savings.
Yes, that's correct. So the majority of that is on renewal projects, and as those are ongoing programs, rather, those dollars are accounted for in 2022's budget. So any of the work that maybe if it wasn't done, the work would then get completed in 22, not requiring a carry forward on those renewal programs. But yes, there were some significant savings on certain projects.
Great, thank you. I'll make one last comment before I start going to the two motions we need on this particular report to bring it to fruition. Simply being that last year being so difficult, administration was trying to figure out when do we lay people off, when do we bring people back, all because of COVID. We had a heck of a year last year trying to manage our affairs, and we came in $100,000 in surplus. That's a pretty tight surplus. That means we managed our money very well last year, and all the departments managed their personnel very well as best they could. There were hiccups along the way, but we could have had a very substantial deficit last year, and we didn't. And that is a huge accomplishment for our city council and administration, of course, who did all the heavy lifting on this. So congratulations, Mr. DeBlanco, to your financial department, and please pass on our kudos all the directors who worked so hard to bring in the numbers that they did for last year. It's a huge testament to the quality of our administration and monitoring our P's and Q's and minding our pennies. So thank you very much. With that, I'll ask council to make a recommendation. The first motion is in front of us. Councilman Newkirk, would you care to make the first motion, please?
Yeah, that would be great. I move that the February 22nd, 2022 report, 2021 year-end financial report be received as information.
Thank you, Councillor. Any questions on the motion? Seeing none. Council, would you please vote accordingly on the motion? That carries unanimously. Thank you. The second motion will be on the screen in a moment here. Councilor Miller, would you care to make this motion, please?
Absolutely. I move that the 2021 to 2022 budget carry forward as identified in attachment 2 of the February 22nd, 2022 report be approved.
Thank you, Councillor. Debate on the motion, please. Seeing none, Council, please vote accordingly. That also carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Blanco. Again, passing our regards to administration, all the departments involved. It was a team effort and very well done team effort. Thank you very much on behalf of council. Our next line item is, pardon me, 8B, Edmonton Global Advocacy Campaign Letter of Support. Who from administration will be speaking to this, Ms. Winter?
Mr. Mayor, it'll be Ms. Dargy.
Ms. Dargy.
Oh, thank you. Good evening, Ms. Dargy. You have the floor, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. As noted in the RFD, the request for decision, Edmonton Global has requested a letter of support from Council to advocate for funding on behalf of a pharmaceutical and vaccine production initiative with the potential to be located in the Edmonton region. The initiative is estimated to be valued at about $165 million, and the province is committed to $81 million in the project. The remaining funding is being sought from Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada. According to Edmonton Global, the Alberta portion of this initiative would focus on the treatment of viruses. As you may recall from Edmonton Global's presentation to Council, one of their key focus areas is on health and life sciences, and about 60% of life science companies in Alberta are located in the Edmonton metro region. This initiative would support regional economic growth in terms of jobs and spin-off opportunities. As such, administration recommends that Council permit the Mayor to sign the advocacy letter on behalf of Council.
Thank you, Ms. Darje. Short and sweet. Nice way to have a presentation. Appreciate that. Questions from Council on the presentation from Ms. Darje? Seeing none, I'll look forward to a motion to be on the screen. Thank you, Ms. Winter. Thank you, Ms. Darje. Councillor Barnhart, would you care to make this motion, please?
I'm glad you asked. I think this is very consistent with the other items we've had on our agenda today. So more than happy to make the motion that the Mayor, on behalf of Council, sign the Edmonton Global letter in support of the Canadian Critical Drug Initiative.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, please, Council. Seeing none, please vote accordingly. And that carries unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Ms. Darje. Appreciate that. All right, next item of business is 9A, bylaws. Bylaw 1010-22, business license bylaw, first, second, and third reading. I do believe that Mr. Mackin or Ms. Jones will be speaking to this matter. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, Wendy Jones. I'm presenting the business license bylaw 1010-22. And we just wanted to circle back and recap that we had brought a draft forward to Council for information on January 18th. And from there on, we proceeded to public engagement. The bylaw attached to the report this evening takes a little bit of a different form and style than previously presented, and that just aligns with legal and legislative services providing insight to adopting a new format of bylaw and keeping our processes simple and clear and defining. The bylaw presented to you tonight has received legal review, and through the public engagement process, we successfully heard a few different things that are introduced to this bylaw this evening. The language, definitions, terms, and conditions continues to be that aligns with our other bylaws. You'll see that through the fee schedule that we've chosen to recommend and remove the non-residential fee for commercial and industrial businesses and home base. And then that was just merely a streamlining process that you'll see this evening in terms of, it was a $5 difference between a non-resident and a resident business license. And so in keeping with some of the simplicity in efforts to reduce red tape through the administration process and for ease of providing a turnaround time with the business licenses, that was a recommendation that came forward. You'll also see that we maintain the restricted substance retail. We did some prorating of business licenses so that when a new application is received, it is very clear within the fees and schedules that it's at 100% for a new license if that comes in the new year. And then from there it goes down to reduced amounts. What we also incorporated into this bylaw was that an application received and approved within the month of December only pays the following year full annual license fee. And the reason for that was because of the Christmas season and all that great stuff. There's really very few days. And so it was quite simplistic in that. With the new business license bylaw, you'll see that we will be looking to introduce some new forms and stuff and clarity for the different types of licenses. That remains intact. And you see that we did the door-to-door sales, which brings forward to the public a vulnerable sector check. And that's looking to maintain and stay in place with maintaining a safe community. The enforcement of the bylaw and the violations went to a municipal tag and a provincial ticket. And it also introduced, after some public stakeholder engagement, introduced that there be a 30-day period in which the business license inspector has the opportunity to allow a business to make good on the violation prior to an actual ticket or tag being issued. And that allows for the simplicity of being able to manage the various different violations that may happen. In the history that we did in a background check, there was one that could be thought of, not documented, but one that could be thought of by administration. And so the violation and ticketing is very minimal when it comes to the business licenses. We also, again, kept the consistency in the previous report that it is very clear to the business license applicant that in the event a development permit is required under any of the regulatory or statutory requirements of the city of Beaumont, that development permit be issued in advance of the business license. And that creates a very clear line in terms of when a business license can be issued. And then there was the introduction of, I'll touch base first on the regional business license and the concept of that. So the Chamber of Commerce was happy to engage with us. We saw their support with this initiative. Edmonton Global also reached out independently once they heard of this initiative and also provided their verbal support. The regional business license currently looks to provide City of Beaumont, an application comes in, if they can show that they have 2 current business licenses within 2 other municipalities, that they would receive a no charge. And so while there is not a definition of regional business within the bylaw itself, through legal, it was determined that we would create it as part of the fee exemption. And so an application comes in, they would be fee exempt if they could put that, and that would be a question on the application form. To give some concept and some understanding around this thought process, one of the things that was identified was if a business is a home-based business in Edmonton right now, for example, we'll take it out of Beaumont. They pay their home business license, and if they want to go work in roughly about 9 other municipalities, they are paying almost $2,500 in business license fees. That doesn't account for any other permits or meeting any other regulations. It's about $2,500 a year. A home-based business, in one of the scenarios that we looked at, was that home-based business is only making $39,000 a year. Take that same business who home-based works throughout the province of Alberta, they will be paying upwards of $9,000 a year, still making the same $39,000 return or income on a year, and they'll be paying upwards of $9,000 in business license fees. And again, that excludes the permits and any other specialized licenses. So when we looked at it from that perspective, and we looked at it from an economic development, what are we looking to do? We're wanting to welcome businesses to our community. We're wanting them to be registered to work in our community. So people from out of that are non-resident come into town, do business. We want to know that they're doing business here. We want to know that what are the gaps that are being serviced by our community by other areas within the surrounding region. So from an analytics perspective, there's a significant amount of value in the conversations that we have with developers and others that come to town saying, what don't you have here? And so by this, we're getting the information. So from a cost perspective, we don't financially see that there is a significant loss or gain, as the revenue created from business licenses averages about 100,000 a year. And that money is used to create advertising, promote Beaumont in different avenues. But it's not a fee in terms of wanting to create a significant revenue that contributes in a major way in some other way, shape, or form. In the other areas that we introduced was trades, a trades license. So a trades license in terms of, again, somebody coming into Beaumont to perform work. And one of the key things that we heard in this process was that there are businesses that come and they go. Business license, they're not on our directory. How are they regulated? So again, we decided that while asking for them to provide a business license puts them accountable for getting a business license, but it'll also ask for some additional information as it relates to a certificate of insurance, validates that they have insurance place. We have a hard time, well, the business license bylaw is not the place to enforce Safety Act codes or violation of permits not being achieved. Your electrical permit, those are the types of permits we're talking about. But what we did introduce was a much substantial fine for those trades coming in and not doing work in the community where a permit is required, and allowing safety codes to come in and check their work. So it was kind of described to us a little bit through the public engagement. There's the fly by night that give good local trades a bad rep, and that there was a sense that there are local trades were also going back in and fixing work that had been done at a cheaper price, but not done to a standard. So ultimately it was costing our homeowners more for doing some of those upgrades and improvements. The trade, we in the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce also indicated being open to being a party for consultation as it related to anything about anything in the consultation of a bit how a business is operating or before a violation ticket. So they have been added to that as well. And the other big thing that we made a change towards was the business directory. A great recommendation was made to us in terms of those businesses that are local, create a shop local directory, and then do an all-inclusive directory where local and the rest of our businesses are named. I think outside of that, I will hand it over to council to see if there's any questions and try and answer your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jones. Ms. Winter, do I begin with the first reading, or do you have questions now?
Thank you, Mary. If you want to have questions asked now, you could go ahead and ask those questions.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you for clarifying. Council, any questions for our presenter before I go to first reading request on the bylaw? Councilor McCook, followed by Councilor Van Newkirk. Kat, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. Happy to see that this is moving along. Just have a couple questions and just looking for some clarity. So first, around the regional business license. I have to be honest, I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this benefits Beaumont as a whole and all the businesses in Beaumont. So you specifically used home-based businesses as an example as to why this would be beneficial to them due to the cost that they spend on business license. So can you give me an example of what kind of home-based business would come into Beaumont and do business here?
Photographer, carpet cleaner.
Okay. So then, so you guys talked about lowering, reducing red tape and whatnot. So we don't get a business fee from them if they have licenses from other municipalities. but I guess they do come and do business here. But then how does this benefit our local businesses as well? So I'm trying to understand, are we putting regional over local? It kind of goes in hand to hand with how we also took away the resident versus non-resident fees. To me, that doesn't really help or benefit our local businesses.
So I think the best way to try and approach this is let's maybe go to the second question in terms of, there was a $5 fee difference between a resident business and a non-resident. Most communities charge almost double or significantly more. So that was just seen as a bit of red tape. A $5 difference just doesn't seem to really break the bank, to be quite honest, and just simplifies that. A trade coming in, however, still does have a non-resident business license attached, and that fee still remains more for clarity. In terms of the regional business license, those businesses are coming to Beaumont anyway. It's not stopping the business from happening, and it's our community that's welcoming that business into our community. So if you were to take a carpet cleaner, we don't have a local carpet cleaning agency or a local HVAC furnace cleaning company. Those businesses are going to come in. Chances are they're registered in a number of other communities. What it does though, is it identifies the analytics that we don't have that service local. So when we work with our development community and other areas within economic development to identify what services you do or do not have, the analytics creates a great value in terms of creating target markets in what we should be bringing to our local economy to service our residents and commercial businesses. I hope that helps clarify.
Thank you. That does clarify it, especially in specifically two businesses that we don't currently have in Beaumont. Did you guys have any feedback on the regional business license from Beaumont businesses?
There was a couple of comments, and yes, they thought it was a good approach. They did not have any opposition, and we did receive support from the Chamber of Commerce, Beaumont Chamber of Commerce.
Great, thank you. And then just one more question. So that kind of leads me to my next. So in regards to the $5 difference and how numerous other municipalities have a larger gap between the resident and non-resident, did you explore perhaps widening the gap rather than just removing it completely?
Beaumont, if we were to look at creating it as a revenue generating instead of an economic opportunity, then there would be the initiative to look at widening it. But we'd rather grow Beaumont and bring in those resources and create that serviced industry. So widening the gap can do one of two things. It can either tell people not to pay for it. They're going to come into town, do one job and get out. And you'll never know they were here potentially. So we thought it would be better to be more welcoming and inclusive into saying, hey, come here. It's okay. We're not going to charge you an arm and a leg to do a one-person job for a day, and you're never coming back again that day, right? So we kind of looked at it in terms of, again, bringing it back to that analytical data that truly helps support target areas of market that we can start to bring into Beaumont for permanent local support.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. I guess I'm just, I understand it, and I understand now that you explain it from the whole economic perspective. I just, when we're speaking to residents and local businesses, I just want to be able to also explain how the changes we made and what we're doing going forward also benefits the businesses that are here.
And I'd like to just, I think, add one more thing, Councillor McCook, in terms of, it is a good point, great points that you've raised, but we're also hoping that this will start the stage for other communities to start adopting similar, And our local businesses will receive the same benefit by going out and doing work in other communities.
Yeah, for sure. Yes, and hopefully that does transpire eventually. Thank you. I appreciate your answers. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I have Councilman Newkirk, followed by Councilor Tessier, followed by Councilor McGough-Swain. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. And good catch on the last point, Wendy, because that's exactly where I was going to start. For me, I think that when I read through this and thought about it, I thought that the benefits to Beaumont businesses, start to become more real if and when the regional partners adopt this similar idea, because then that is the benefit where, our businesses can grow in the region. Right now, it feels like a little bit of a vacuum from the region to here. And I think that's kind of what Councillor McCook was trying to flesh out a little bit, but staying on the same topic, we're once again being leaders in an idea, and I'm for that, and I think we should give this a try, the regional business idea. But I'm just wondering if you can walk us through some of the conversation you had as this concept came together, and did you try to head off any of the unintended consequences of this? Just if you could talk us through a little bit of the thinking on how this got there.
It came about a year ago. The initiative was first raised in terms of how can we look to be leaders. There was discussions with it at the chamber level, and the Edmonton Global table about this. It just that nobody really took a leap with it. I think there's a few communities waiting on the decision this evening to see where this goes and how it will be adopted based on the feedback we heard. Basically, what we did after that was we took it, we put some context around it, and then we flushed it out through the public engagement process. We didn't hear, there were very straightforward answers in that we support this. We need to work regionally. We recognize we don't have all of our services here, and again led to that value in the analytics and the value that does help the economic development within Beaumont to start looking for those other interested parties that can fill retail space. When we've talked to some local developers about it, those are the analytics that help them figure out through design and vertical infrastructure who and what they should be targeting in terms of needs within Beaumont. So again, it does play heavy to the analytics.
And then the last piece I'll put in there too is, we're not moving a lever with these fees either, right? Like, let's not be blind to that. I think one of the things that this does is it also shows a business-friendly atmosphere, and it shows that we've thought about trying something new for businesses, and we're willing to be business-friendly, and maybe someone somewhere takes that and decides to come to Beaumont. We don't know what some of those catalysts are for the decisions for businesses to get here, but anyhow, thank you for being thoughtful in this bylaw reimagining and being here to answer the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tessier. Councillor Tessier, you have the floor. Renee, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. There's a lot of things to go through. I think as someone on this side of the table, and we got to vote on this, it would have been really helpful to get some of that direct feedback from that public consultation. It's great that administration dealt with the Beaumont Chamber of Commerce, because that's someone that's got an ear to the ground with the businesses. It doesn't look like there was a whole bunch of engagement there, so I would have liked to see what those businesses are saying, the ones that are really interested. But I trust if the Beaumont Chamber had nothing but good comments to say, that's a valid point. Did they have anything negative to say about the business license bylaw changing?
And no, we did not hear any negative comments. The concerns that they were interested in were being able to be support to the city as it pertained to businesses following the bylaw, having a registered license with the city, but being able to be support to us in decision making. And so we incorporated that. The other piece that came very strongly from the chamber was that they wanted to see that 30-day period of grace, allowing a business to make good on any potential violation before, and we adopted that language into this bylaw as well. So those were the really two big key ones that we heard.
Great. Yeah, perfect. That answers my question, and the other counselors covered everything else I had. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Just before I go to Councillor Monkoff-Swain, followed by Councillor Barnhart, just so you know, Renee, when you mentioned we have to vote on this tonight, we don't have to do that actually. Just to give you a comfort zone with this, if there's some concern with council regarding this particular part of the bylaw, we can send it back to the committee of the whole administration to further clarify for us if we want to. We don't have to vote on it tonight, just to give you a comfort zone with your comment, okay? So having said that, I'll go over to Councillor Monkoff-Swain. Sam, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You teed me up very, very well. First, I don't want my comments to take away from all the great work that's been done on this. I'm going to hone in on that exemption K, the regional piece. But just to be clear, the rest of the bylaw I think is great. I'm not supportive of that regional piece that's in there, and I'll just speak to it very, very briefly here. You talked about a photographer as a good example, and Steve mentioned that this isn't a financial incentive for us. To me, this is if I'm standing on the street answering a question, why a local photographer has to pay a licensing fee here, but someone coming from outside comes in here, I don't know if I can justify that. So my preference, in order to be able to get me to vote for this, like I want to vote for this new bylaw, but the only way I'll be able to do that is to take out that K. So I'll defer to the mayor on how he wants to handle that, whether we direct it back to committee of the whole. My gut is administration has the recommendation in front of us. There's not going to be any new information. So my preference would be to make an amendment to the bylaw and just remove K. And if there isn't enough support from council to do that, then I'll vote against it and lose the vote, and we move on. That's fine. But for me, I just that doesn't pass the sniff test for me. Let's see other regional players want to take that on. So I'll leave it there with my comments. But if the bylaw is presented to right now, I'll be voting against it. So I'm hoping we can address that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Barnhart.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for, as Sam said, as Councillor Monkoff-Swain said, that setting it up and teeing it up. I'm really feeling there's so much in this. And yes, the administration has done a fantastic job of making good changes and proposing good ways to go. But I feel like it's a bit of a fire hose right now. There is so much in this bylaw. And knowing the people that I do know that are involved in home-based businesses and women entrepreneurs, I just really want to make sure that they know what these changes are and how it affects them. And yes, it's been on the internet and on our site, and people have had an opportunity, but I really don't think that we've given it enough engagement opportunities for people to really understand how it impacts them. For me, being a counselor, I've had to go into this and read it over and over again to understand what it means. And I don't have in front of me the past bylaw to be able to compare what was there and now what has changed. And I really do need that to be able to see what differences this is making. I'm nervous as well, as Councillor Monkoff-Swain has mentioned about the regional license. On one hand, it seems like a good idea to increase economic development, which is something that we've said is a priority, and I believe it is. However, if I'm a local entrepreneur, I could see where I'd have some difficulties with that. So it just feels like too much, too quickly, without enough understanding of what each one of these changes is going to bring about. Not the whole bylaw. Certainly some of it is cosmetic, or it's minor changes, it's red tape reduction. I'm good with that. But big things like the regional license, and I'm very interested in the community safety part, about the trades and their business licenses. I just need more time myself, so I will not be voting for third reading tonight. Most I would do is go to second. I would like to see it come back And I'd like to hear a debate on the item that Councillor Monkoff-Swain is raised, because honestly, my head's mixed up on it. The purpose of this bylaw seems to be twofold. It's not just about economic development, it's also about maintaining local business and their development and their ability to survive. I wouldn't want our bylaw to go against the development of the businesses that have worked so hard in this community to make a living and to build their businesses. So I'm not ready to give a third reading, that's for sure.
Thank you, Councillor. Before I go to Councillor Miller, I'm getting messages from administration on how to handle this little situation, and I'm getting two people talking at the same time. So I'm going to step in and say, I'll let Councilor Miller speak in a moment here, but I'm leaning towards sending it back to administration. Sam's comment is valid that a COW meeting will not exactly bring more information. No, but it will give us a chance to perhaps debate this and more of a among council members and make sure we understand exactly what we're doing for our business people. Personally, for example, there's electricians in town here, there's plumbers who are domiciled here in Beaumont and do work here in Beaumont. And so I don't see how having a competitor not pay a fee helps those particular electricians and plumbers who live here in Beaumont. So I can't get my head around that just yet. I understand the regional argument, and we are a regional board. Regional council, pardon me. We do believe in regional work. We're very good that way, but it's got to be for the right reasons. I'm not sure I'm there yet. So I'll go to Councilor Miller, then I'm going to come back and make a decision how we're going to go forward in this, okay? Ashley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have a lot to say. I think everyone's pretty much said it. As Kathy mentioned, this is a lot of information for us councillors to get, wrap our heads around. And when I look at the public engagement, if I'm reading this right, 10 actual participants for direct dialogue is just not convincing enough for me. I see that, yes, there was, 5,400 who saw the business bylaw, 572 visits on the bylaw, but 10 actual people. That just tells me that it's not necessarily that they were okay with the bylaw. It's just, as Kathy said, if it takes us this amount as a counselor to understand this and be okay with this, I really question what the residents actually are aware of when it comes to this. So for that reason, I'm on board with everybody else. I wouldn't vote for it at all tonight.
Thank you, Councillor. And just to clarify too, administration is trying to help me navigate the waters here because we are discussing before we had the first reading even put on the table yet. So they're trying to help me navigate through the process here, which I greatly appreciate. But I will go to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk first, and then I'll have my thoughts, and then we'll go from there. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, you kind of read my mind there because I wanted to start debating, but we're still asking questions before the motion's on the floor. So that's all I was going to point out. So once we get there, then I'll challenge the public engagement piece a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So before we go any further, I may ask the CEO Schwartz to jump in a moment here. I'm kind of inclined, based on the discussion of the room here, maybe sending this back to the committee of the whole for more robust discussion with council before it comes to debate. Or do you think, CEO Schwartz, we should plow through the first reading and second reading and see where it goes? What do you think we should do procedurally? What do you recommend?
It seems to be, it's almost feeling like we're jamming this bayou, and I don't want that. It sounds like there's a lot of information. The committee of the whole, maybe the conversation wasn't as robust as it could have been. Sandy's going to step in and snap my fingers on this one, but I think the safest bet is to go back to committee. Shalane, what are you thinking?
Thank you, Mr. Schwartz. I do have a motion that can refer back to committee of the whole for further discussion should council wish to go that direction.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. And I had that motion, Ms. Winter, prepared just in case when we went down this direction, which I thought we might be going down this direction. As it turns out, we have. So unless council strongly objects verbally now, I'm going to entertain this motion to send it back for more discussion. I think doing the bylaw right the first time is in our best interest long term. Everyone believes that at this table and on this call this evening. I believe that fully, and I do think we need to make sure we have our ducks in a row on this particular bylaw. And there's no imminent time rush, have this done this evening. So I'm prepared to move this motion forward in a moment unless someone really strongly objects to proceeding this way. Anybody on council feel that way? Oh, Councillor Tessier, your hand's up, sorry.
Just a question. So bringing it back to the committee of whole, what objective is that bringing for us? Is that like, what are we going to gain from bringing it back? That's just all I want to know. Is it just more discussion?
Yes, as best I can answer for you. We'll bring it back for discussion to flesh out this regional piece that seems to be the one thing that is on people's minds this evening, to make sure we understand how it's going to work. For example, my question was a comfort zone to explain to the electrician in town or the plumber in town why his competitor doesn't pay a business license and the domiciled electrician here does, in my example. I need to get there, and I'm not there yet. I think the COTW will help us flush out that discussion. That's my objective by moving it to COTW. I see Councillor Barnhart's hand and Councillor Muckhoff-Swain's. Does that give you an answer, Renee?
Yes, sir. Yeah, I just don't want to push it again for the same conversation as all, but.
I understand. So no more information will be presented, but we can maybe flesh out the details and move forward from that point. Councillor Barnhart, you have the hand up first, then Councillor Muckhoff-Swain.
Thank you, Mayor. What I would ask, if it's all possible, is for the CLTW to have a copy of the existing bylaw with the track changes so that we can see what has actually changed from the existing bylaw to the new bylaw.
Okay.
If that's possible.
I'm sure it will be. Councillor Muckhoff-Swain? Sam, you have the floor.
Mike, you had your hand up there for a sec. Did you want to?
Hang on.
Sure. I was just going to add to Councillor Tessier's question about what else we can do. I also heard a theme of public engagement, that you wanted to discuss it. So if we go back to committee, gives you an opportunity to direct us if you want to do things differently. So that was the only other thing I had caught, Councillor Tessier. Thank you, Councillor Muckhoff-Swain.
Yeah, so just sorry, Bill, to shift that on you. But for me personally, I'm prepared to vote on it tonight. And if folks want to go back to committee in the whole, then I'm happy to do that. But personally, I've seen the bylaw. I understand what the regional initiative is, regional part is. I just don't support it. No engagement. I think it would be taking up too much time. So I'm personally prepared to vote for it tonight, but I see where you're trying to go back to committee of the whole. But to Councillor Tessier's point, there's not going to be any new information. A red line will be helpful to see the comparison. I understand that for sure. So if the will of council is to move it this way, then I'm happy to go back to committee of the whole. But personally, I'm prepared to vote for it with a striking out of the K in section in that section there. So I'll leave it there.
Councilman Newkirk. Thanks, Sam. Councilman Newkirk. Steve, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I also heard a little bit of a theme on public engagement, and one of the themes that we see on many things that are brought forward in council is how do we target the right people and get the right information and get the public engagement that we need. I guess this is the same group that didn't fund a public engagement coordinator during budget. So we need to be mindful of what we have resource for, what we're available to, and what we're able to do. I think that my head was kind of in a similar spot to Councillor Muckhoff-Swain around if the regional piece is the challenge here. The rest of it, I haven't heard much challenge on. So, perhaps if we struck out that K, that regional piece, then we would move something forward here tonight. But, if council wants to kick it back to a committee of the whole and chat about that a little bit more and see if there's a way to incorporate that, then I'd be all for that discussion too. So let's see where it goes.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. Appreciate that. So, anybody else want to say anything? Because we have two choices here. We can simply send back to committee of the whole for more discussion on the regional piece, or we can go for first reading and then amend the bylaw. I believe we can, Ms. Winter, and make sure I'm on the right path here. We can amend the bylaw this evening. I believe we can, to take out that regional piece and pass the balance of the bylaw. I'm okay with the balance of the bylaw. I'm still hung up on the regional piece. So before we go any further, make sure I don't make a procedural mistake unintentionally. Ms. Winter, Can we do that this evening? And has it procedurally possible?
Mayor, thank you. My suggestion would actually be to refer it actually back to administration to take out that regional piece, only because we don't want to have unintended consequences. We do have the regional piece within the fees and charges and within the bylaws and the definitions. So I would say that you could give it first reading and then refer back to administration to remove that regional, and then we would bring it back for further readings.
Okay. So having said that, before I go to Councillor Barnhart, so if we were to do that, we're assuming that all of council or majority of council wants that piece taken out. I'm not sure I have everyone's not everyone's clear desire on that part of it. The discussion is around this one particular piece. The rest of the bylaw seems to be fine. I get that. I'm not sure I have enough people in front of me saying, yeah, you take that part out, I'm good to go. I'm not sure we're there yet. To even refer back to administration. So I want to be fair to councillors here. Having said that, I'll go to Councillor Barnhart, and then we'll try and move this along as best we can, please. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, you're saying what I believe right now is I know myself, I could not vote for third reading tonight. And I need to see all of the changes, red lines, so that I know what has been changed. The regional piece, I'd like to hear the conversation because I'm not convinced yet one way or the other. The administration has been looking at this for a longer time than I have, and they may have a really good reason why that's a good way to go. So I want to give them that opportunity to make that case, as well as hear more from Councillor Munkoff-Swain about why he thinks that's not a good idea. So I'm not prepared to vote unanimously to go to third reading tonight anyway, so I'd like to send it back to COTW.
There's two things there, either COTW or just back to administration to take that piece out. COTW gives a chance to debate that piece, whereas back to administration simply takes it out and then we vote on it at the next council meetings. There's two different concepts here, right? And I may muddy the waters unintentionally, but I want to make sure everyone has a chance to get in on this because I want to make sure we get it right the first time and not, for a sense of expediency, get it wrong. I'll prepare to make sure we get it right. So there's two things, either back to COTW for a discussion or back to administration to take out the regional piece. It comes back to it being gone entirely and we vote going forward. Sam, your hand is up. Actually, Sam, sorry, before I go to Sam, you don't mind. Ms. Wijaya, you have a comment to make before I go to Sam?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to chime in from a legal and legislative perspective. We've done a lot of work with economic development on this bylaw. The structure and the template of the bylaw is significantly different than the original bylaw. So a red line would be very difficult to produce and likely of little value because it would be a mess. But it would be possible to provide sort of a side-by-side comparison of the conceptual changes. So I just wanted to make sure that council was aware of that. Because I would hate to disappoint council by bringing a red line version that would basically hurt you in profound and meaningful ways.
Okay, I appreciate that. Sam, you have the floor now, please.
Just very quickly, I mean, it's very clear, Councillor Barnhart, and I respect her position, not willing to move to third reading, and we need unanimous to be able to do that. So that option's out. So I'm with you to go back to committee of the whole. And probably the best way for us to hash this out. No real urgency here, but I do want to get one point across. And apologies, Steve, but the talk about need for increased public engagement. So sure, but the onus is on the public to engage, right? Like we've put out so many opportunities for them to engage on this, and 10 people responding plus the chamber. It's a two-way street here on that. So I just wanted to point that out. I know we do our best to try to put this out in front of people, and I know Wendy and team pound the pavement to try to get the feedback. It's not at the stage where we get it. It's once this is in and it impacts someone, then they come to us and say, why wasn't I consulted on it? So I just wanted to put that little tidbit in. I know we're working hard on our engagement here. And I know, Steve, that's not what you were getting at directly, but I just wanted to flag that. So all in all, I'll be quiet and I'll vote for moving this back to committee of the whole. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Sam. I appreciate that. So having said that, I'm reading the room as best I can, and I will make a motion that bylaw 1010-22 business license bylaw be sent back to administration to present at the next committee of the whole. Oh, thank you, Shalane. You read my mind. Appreciate that. So I will restate it properly. I move that the draft bylaw 1010-22 be referred back to the committee of the whole, further discussion on the bylaw, and for more information on the changes to the bylaw. Thank you, Ms. Winter. Appreciate that. Council, discussion on the bylaw, please. Councilor Van Nieuwkerk, your hand's up. Go ahead, Steve. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Sorry,
Okay,
I was hovering over the wrong button. I was on the green one here.
it's okay. I appreciate that. So having said that, no discussion. Council, please vote accordingly with your green button. That passed unanimously. Thank you, Council. Thank you, Administration. We look forward to discussing this in some more detail next committee of the whole. Thank you all for participating in the discussion.
Thank you, Council and Mayor.
Thank you. Next is items 10A and 10B, which are designed for information only. There's no need to discuss these. We'll move on to point number 11, CAO update. Mr. Schwartz, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Daniluk. Looking at the time here, I'll be very quick. Earlier today, Council received an issues briefing with key messages. This will be the first year that administration will be sending out separate notices to property owners, assessment notices to property owners. You will receive a separate notice each February with their property's assessed value, which is used in the calculation of the municipal property taxes, which you'll receive later on. Our information is on the website. This will give the property owners the opportunity to have more time to understand their assessment and to file the appeal. If there's any other questions on that, Mr. Dowler and Mr. DeBlanco are on at the call as well. Secondly, Council had directed in the budget for us to do a service review of the planning and development and engineering services. We have hired KPMG to complete that. So what you're going to see is some targeted interviews with key stakeholders and some surveys. Council can expect to attend a short, thinking an hour-and-a-half session, which we arranged through Shima. We will have an issues briefing to all of Council tomorrow, so you'll be able to champion that for us, because I think it's something that's very valuable for the community. So we're hoping that it's seen as a positive, which it certainly is. Very quickly on COVID, Premier is making an announcement on Saturday. We quite likely expect it to be the launch of stage 2, which would then lead us to our next council meeting being in person, and that will be on March 8th. The direction that council had provided was to reassess this in the first part of March. So it would just expire and we would move to March 8th in person. Beaumont's numbers, don't have them. On February 16th, there were 64 cases. The cases are trending down, as are the wastewater data and the EPICurve, as I sent that chart out earlier this week. So those are all good signs. Yeah, that we're almost out of it. So thank you very much.
Thank you, CEO Schwartz. I have a question, if you don't mind, please, if I could. Your first comments on the new way of informing our residents of the assessment model. Great news. I think it's a great step forward for us to help our citizens understand the taxation system, which I know is not easy at the best of times. Is there a communication plan in place or soon to be in place regarding informing our residents of this new change, how it affects them, and they'll be getting 2 letters instead of 1? I think it's a great thing, but what is our plan, or what is it at this point, the plan to inform our residents of why we're doing this and that sort of thing? If you could comment. If it's yet to be determined, that's fine, but the thoughts at this point, please. Thank you.
No, I'll leave that to Mr. Dowler. We do have a plan and it is in motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schwartz. Yes, there is a plan. The specific details could probably be provided by Mr. Berezowski if he's available. But certainly there's a huge effort on our part to make sure residents have a better understanding of why they're receiving the notice, making sure that they understand it's not a invoice to be paid at this point in time. That's to be coming in towards the end of May. But certainly a better kind of system and communication effort to make sure that residents understand that this notice is being tied to the assessment value of their property and to the ability for them to challenge that assessment if they chose to, and the dates around when they have to actually file that challenge or that appeal notice. So through the regular channels, I'm imagining, and again, Mr. Berezowski will correct me if I'm wrong here, social media, newspaper as well. So it will be out in the public for them to hear about and ask any questions if they do have them.
Thanks, Mr. Dellar. That's very helpful. Thank you very much. Any other questions for our CEO? Seeing none, thank you, Council. I did miss a step back on point number 10, Councilor inquiries. Are there any council wishing to make an inquiry this evening? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on then. Are there any notices of motion to be brought forth by a council this evening? Councilor Barnhart, Kathy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm just waiting for Ms. Winter to put it up on the screen. So at the March 8th, 2022 council meeting, I will move that upcoming council and committee of the whole agendas be published in the local newspaper with a disclaimer that they are subject to change and with a link to the city's agenda website.
Thank you, Councillor. Appreciate that. Are there any further notices of motion to come forward from a councillor this evening? Seeing none, thank you. That brings us to the conclusion of our open session of our council this evening. Our next session is a closed session, so we will adjourn for 4 minutes while we readjust the room. I will need a motion to go into camera, please. Councillor Miller, please.
Sure, I move that council meet in private to discuss matters protected from disclosure under the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, Section 24 and 25.
Thank you, Councillor. Discussion on the motion, Council? Seeing none, please vote accordingly. That carries unanimously. We will recess while we reset the room. Thank you. Thank you, Council Administration, for your patience in our closed session. We are now back in open session with Council. No business came from closed session needs to be dealt with this evening. So having said that, that concludes our agenda. At this point, I'll declare the evening session of Beaumont City Council closed. Thank you all. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.